And joining us from the south of France is Mr. Ed Courage. How are you, Ed?
I'm very well. I'm much recovered from the accident on the 2nd of April. And I'm Ed Courage. I'm from a brewing family, Courages, and we came to England. Well, no, actually, we went to Scotland in about 1560. My wife's family, Charrington, went to London in 1530. We were a bit later, and we made beer ever since, really. And beer was the people who made beer came from Bruges, and that's where we came, and we were chucked out for being Protestant, and that's the Huguenot story. So if you look on one of our signs, which was a cockerel on a gold cockerel on a red background, well, orange background, the orange bit is Huguenot, and if you look at a bottle of Nicky's beer, my wife's beer, it's got an orange triangle, and that's Bass, and that means Huguenot. So
Is that right?
Huguenots from France, and we've made beer ever since.
So this is probably a silly question, but how did two members of I guess, competing brewing, well, huge, I mean, if you're not from the UK, you might not know it, but if you are from the UK, you certainly will. From the Bass Brewery and the Courage Brewery, how did you guys get together?
Well, we actually met in Verbier in about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, in the Ski Club of Great Britain on an evening going skiing, and we thought, well, anyway, that was a lovely story which we enjoyed, and thanks to the Ski Club of Great Britain, Nicky and I then got married about 7 or 8 years ago, and we live half the time in Verbier in the winter, and the other half down here in the south of France, where it's getting increasingly hot, I have to say. Now it's a bit better, but the middle of the summer really is very hot down here.
I know. I've been down there in the middle of summer, and it's above 40 degrees, and it's just not pleasant. You can't walk in the sand. Well, you can, but you have to sprint. I'm actually down there next weekend.
Are you?
This weekend, going on Friday, actually.
Lovely.
Got a birthday party in Villefranche.
Villefranche, that's very nice.
Yeah, it's a lovely place, isn't it? So we're heading down there on Friday for the weekend. But I have to ask, where did your family originally land in the east of Scotland? Where was that?
On the east coast, south of Aberdeen, there's a stone where just south of Aberdeen, and then we made barrels up there to start off with, and then and they went to London, and eventually we stuck beer in them and sent it to London, and we had a wharf right by the Tate Modern. That was our wharf, and then when the Great Fire happened, the Great Fire of London, we were protected by the Globe Theatre, Shakespeare's theatre, and then we borrowed the land when the theatre was burnt down for about 350 years, maybe 400 years, and then we gave it back. But what we did was we went to the Forest of Dean with the Royal Navy, and we chose the great oaks that were used by for the Navy, and then we put those, and then we built the frame of the theatre, not all its inside, but just the frame. And in 1967, we gave it back to the Royal Shakespeare Company, having used it for so many, many, many years.
So that's the Globe. Your family built the Globe Theatre.
Well, it was burned down in the Great Fire.
So the new one, new old one.
We only built the frame because when we got there, the inside of it in 1666, basically. Well, when the inside of it was burnt down, we then took it and strapped the wood and made it into a big marshalling yard for beer. And so when we gave it back in 67, we gave it back beautifully with the wood back in the frame, and then they decorated it and put in all the seats and so on. But actually, the frame we returned. Well, my grandfather returned it, that is the Globe Theatre. Now you can see the outside frame and the lovely oaks of the Forest of Dean.
That is quite a story. So I grew up in Aberdeen.
Oh, right.
I'm from Aberdeenshire, Where? So you just said just south of Aberdeen. Where were you? Do you know if
that I can't remember. It was because we landed there, and there aren't very many records of it. But there was a stone there, in a graveyard, to John Courage, and that's really the only evidence that we were up there. And then, but we came south and came into London, and then brewed in just by Tower Bridge, right by the side of Tower Bridge. In fact, we share the wall with Tower Bridge, and we shared the wall and Tower Bridge, and that's where our main brewery was. But then we started making beer in lots of breweries all over London and all over the south of England. Some of those brands would be John Smith's is one of ours. Anyway, lots of brands were ours. Hart Lager, Hofmeister, all those wonderful things. Oh yeah, and Courage Directors was for us. When I was a child, we used to drink that. My goodness, I shouldn't say that now. Against the law.
in the boardroom, in the director's office?
Shit. No, it was called the Directors, Courage Directors.
I remember it.
Yeah, and we were told that we were, making rubbish beer, and we took that to the Oktoberfest in Munich many times, and totally blind, we won it 3 or 4 times. The Golden Sheath at the Oktoberfest, which for an English beer against all those German beers was quite something. We weren't terribly popular, but we did win it, and that's totally blind. Just you get a half a liter of beer, and you have to say which one you think's the best out of the whole festival. And as I say, we won the Golden Sheath a couple of times.
It's weird. Well, the thing is, if you go to Germany, I was recently in, well, I'm not sure if it's Bavaria, but in Stuttgart. So is that? But I don't know if that is Bavaria. I don't know. Anyway, it's down there, right in the very south. But the renown for the beer there is very, very good. But it's usually like what we call lager, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Fizzy. And your beer is usually, it's what we call real ale. It's not carbonated.
It might be the reason we won it, because it was something new and different.
Yeah, could be.
And they've been, in the Oktoberfest, I used to go to shuck so much beer down your throat. I mean, it takes you till Christmas to get over it.
Yeah, I imagine. That's one thing I miss about living in the Alps, about not being in the UK, is the real ale. The ones that the hand pump it. It's a hand pump. There's no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was class. You do get it. You get it in some of the, but it's not the same. Yeah. It's not the same stuff.
Actually, the Swiss are pretty good. But we used to put all sorts of rubbish in our beer, and all sorts of things. I won't frighten you with what we used to do. But the Swiss will only allow water, hops and malt, basically water, malt and yeast. So if you buy a box of beer, you're going to live a lot longer than if you buy a Carriage Tavern or John Smith's or one of the others. But because they have very heavy regulations on beer,
it's like a
thing in certain ways.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, well, I knew that. I knew they had it in Germany. I didn't realize it was in Switzerland as well. But there we go. Yeah. Anyway, could talk about beer in the Globe Theatre. That's another. So, I did a podcast not so long ago. No, actually, look, just before you go down, I'm gonna make that a little point. Your family were brewing in continental Europe, and you learned from the Phoenicians. How did you know that?
Well,
the Venetians, not the.
Well, the Venetians in about 1226. It might have been a bit later. It might have been at 13 something. All brewers in Europe wondered how on earth they dig a hole in the middle of Venice and get water from the substrate underneath the what do you call it anyway, and without the salt from the sides going down and poisoning the water. And everyone wondered how on earth they did it. And in about let's call it 1300, all the brewers, including us from Bruges, all went there, and we worked out that actually they build a tube like that down into the substrate, and then about halfway down they put in a brick staging all around the outside, and they bring in a little brook like a river, and they run the river round and out on both sides, and that stops the crap, let's put it like that, the salt coming down and the crap going down and poisoning the substrate. And we all learnt that from the water bailiffs of Venice, and everyone in brewing then could have a brewery that didn't have to dig a new hole every 6 months because the water was being poisoned down below. And that allowed us then to be able to make beer in the same place and grow a business rather than just digging a hole, getting the water out, waiting for it to get filthy, then moving to the next one, which was the old way of doing it. And we all learned that and then went back to the area which is now Belgium, but it was actually France in those days, and picked up the trade and then started selling it all over France and the Low Countries in Europe. And that was really the beginning of brewing, and it was the Huguenot people, the Protestant, dare I say it, hard-working Protestants, were allowed to do this, and that's how it all started. Then the French got fed up with us because we became too successful in lots of business, so they chucked us all out, which they did in various stages throughout history, really, on from the English Reformation right on to the, into the 1800s. They were still chucking Protestants out, and we were one of the chuck outs, and so was Nicky. There you go.
That's really fascinating. How making beer becomes a geopolitical thing, and you become too powerful, you get lobbed out.
Yeah,
I understand.
I think we just became too big for our boots, and the French didn't like that. And pre the French Revolution, there was only really the Catholic Church organising drink production, and not organising but regulating, and the French court. And the French court was so grand they wouldn't bother with us. They were building Versailles.
Yeah, gee, it goes back to and I don't. Have you ever read Wolf Hall, the book Wolf Hall, Hilary Mantel?
Oh yes,
Mantel.
Yeah, I know. I haven't read it, but I know.
Amazing historical fiction. It's about Henry VIII and Thomas Cromwell, who was not the great grandfather of the Oliver Cromwell, but his adopted son, grandson. Anyway, they were doing all the trade out of Bruges. He was connected to that the trade in Bruges.
Yeah.
And at the time when Bruges was producing pamphlets, and I forget what the name of the Bible is now. I can't remember. Yeah. I can't believe I've forgotten it. I've read anyway, but it was the first. The Germans did it, Martin Luther, and they produced the first Bible that people could read. It wasn't in Latin, and they were subversively sending this all around Europe, certainly to Henry VIII, and trying to get him on board to become a Protestant. And I don't know how we got onto this one, but that's.
Well, I think the key issue was that he wanted to divorce his wife and marry Anne Boleyn.
Yeah, that's what the book's all about.
Anne Boleyn may have still had a head on her shoulders when Nicky's family arrived. Certainly she'd lost her head and that by the time we arrived, but there is a chance, and we've been researching that madly, trying to work out whether Anne Boleyn, who was the reason for the Reformation in England, whether she actually had her head on her shoulders when Nicky's mob arrived. It's very difficult to get it accurate, those things.
I know. Well, I tell you what, that book, you should read it because it's excellent. It really is an excellent book, and there's actually 3 parts of it, so it takes up a good portion of your time, put it that way. Anyway,
enjoy that.
So I got introduced to you by a friend of mine, friend of our mutual friend, Neil. Shout out to Neil Ahern, thank you, Neil. And he said he met you because we've all heard this story, and so I did a podcast recently, a few episodes ago, with Caroline George.
Yes.
Whose husband was very tragically killed.
Yeah, and I just want to say, and I counted Adam as one of my greatest friends.
Yeah, her husband Adam.
Yeah.
was killed along with an end of a horror, absolute freak horror helicopter crash. Absolutely, just but still to this day boggles my mind. And now we had a chat. You tell me what happened. Of course, the guide, Adam George, he died. The pilot died, and there was another young gentleman who was also in the helicopter who died. But
James Goff.
James Goff, yes, exactly.
His father is again one of our closest friends, and he lives in Verbier in the winter, same as I. And James was one of the loveliest people you can imagine. He was a diplomat in some of the most ghastly parts of southern Africa, and he still made it work. They would just say, "Sorry, you need to go to southern Zimbabwe or to Angola," and off he'd go. He'd make it work. How on earth those people make it work, I know not.
Yeah.
So,
well,
he was a diplomat.
Yeah, I guess the reason I wanted to speak to you is we had a little chat about it, but because your story became pretty much, well, it became international news, because for me to give a very quick précis of what actually happened that day is going on a heli-ski trip with 4 people in the back of the helicopter and 2 in the front, pilot.
That's right, and then 2, that would be Robert Goff back at Quadaker waiting, and the son of the 2 boys, Richard Hutchins, back at the Quadaker waiting for the second rotation. So the rotation, standard sort of double rotation heli day, which was going to be good fun because there was lots of snow around. We were all really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so this fateful day took off from a place called Quadaker, which is on one side of the valley, and fly across the other side to a peak called the Petit Combat. And that you land on the top, it's flat as a pancake. It's a glacier, and I suppose it makes sense that it's flat on the peak. And you were flying in. You were the first helicopter. There was another helicopter going to come after with the rest. Was that the rest of the group in there?
Our helicopter would land. We'd get out, and then he'd go back and get the second group.
All right, understood. That makes sense. Okay. So yeah, just how about you just talk us through the day, and when we can.
Well, we all, as always, met at the Savoulaire in Verbier. The guide Adam has to see everyone skiing. He can't just jump in a helicopter and all of us jump in a helicopter and fly over. So we went up to the Savoulaire. He watches one of the boys. I don't think he'd seen him skiing. Make sure he doesn't snowplow out the landing spot. And then we all then decided who would go in what helicopter. We normally split families, but we've always done that. I never know why, but it's a jolly good thing we did it this time. Anyway, helicopter comes in, all very standard, load all the stuff into the panniers on the helicopter, and then it didn't look great. The weather over there didn't look great, but we were sure it was going to clear. And over we went. The helicopter because of the poor visibility, helicopter has to go round the whole of the Val de Ban because he must have a vision of the ground at all times. So that was a bit of a different route, but nothing really difficult. And then we started coming into land on the top of the Petit Combat, which is about 3,600, maybe a bit more. So quite near the roof of the helicopter's ability. But anyway, we'd been there loads of times before, our club. We'd been there lots and lots of times. And it would have been a lovely day. So the helicopter starts coming into land. It's obviously a huge amount of snow coming up under the helicopter and being pulled up. And it was very poor visibility. I did see the post. There's a post up there. And I'm absolutely certain. It's very difficult to be certain. I'm 90% certain I saw the post. And then I always then unclip my belt. So I'm ready to get out. And I told the boys to do the same thing. And you just go like that and open it. And then lumps of snow started appearing on the front of the helicopter, which was very unusual. And I've been to lots of inquiries, and it's really very important, the bit where it started going completely wrong. And anyway, the helicopter started bouncing around very violently, and lumps of snow were coming up onto the screen. And then I saw a black object come piling around the front of the helicopter. And I'm almost sure that was the blade of the helicopter. And then all hell let loose. And somehow we went sideways into the ground, and the door exploded. And I've had some experience of motor racing, and you've got to slow things down. If you just let it all happen, you've had it. So slowing it down is the most important thing in a crash. So I rammed into one of the boys and broke my arm. It was on this side of me, on the left-hand side. And I broke my arm here in 3 places. Like, you don't feel anything. And then as I flew out underneath, I sort of grabbed the other boy. Everyone says it's to save his life. I'm terribly sorry, but it was really just to slow myself down. And we all went piling out onto the ground. And then the helicopter pad, it's got this big black pad, about half a meter by half a meter pad to stop it sinking. And that came really hard down beside my head, and I thought, blinking heck. And then the helicopter then hightailed, having caught the other blade, over the front of the petit combat and down, and there was total silence. And I thought, well, thank goodness for that. I'm still alive. And then I started going down, and I was trying to slow myself down and not dig my feet in. This classic, get your back of your head off the snow.
So you're sliding down? You're sliding down the mountain?
Onto the combat, doing about, I would think, 50 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour. Then the whole world, I heard that awful sound and it started breaking all around me. And then I looked at the sky, obviously going a lot quicker than 100 kilometers an hour. And down we went. And I thought, that's it, this is a massive avalanche, and the noise. And then suddenly, bang, 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 bang. And I went, it's a crevasse. And I went, oh, for goodness sake, give us a break. Give us a break. Which has been difficult to translate into Swiss German in the inquiries. And then I rattled down inside the crevasse. But there was a lot of snow with me, around me, going down in the crevasse. So that's, I think, the reason I just didn't get smashed to pieces. Anyway, then suddenly, bang, I'm sat on a ledge, and down below is miles down darkness, and I listened, because I'm told you can hear the water at the bottom of a crevasse to about 200 meters, and I was desperately hoping it was less. Anyway, I landed on this snow bridge, and it was total silence, and I was very badly injured. 9 ribs broken in 12 places, terrible job on my neck and shoulder, collarbones broken. Anyway, let's say all this side of me is all smashed up, but you don't feel any of it. And then on the side of the ice, I then just shone the ice for a few minutes so I could see Edward J. Courage and have a chat, because that's very important.
Yeah. Before we go to that part, then, let me just recap that. Helicopter comes in. Oh, by the way, I mentioned the point that it was actually blue skies everywhere else that morning, wasn't it? It was just cloudy on top of the mountain you were landing on. Was that, if I remember correctly?
It wasn't a great day, but it was clearing.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm not a meteorologist, and it's up to the guide and the pilot, and we were safe. I felt safe in their hands. So my wife had mentioned to Adam that she couldn't see the top of the combat, and he just said, well, it's going to clear, so don't worry. So, but I mean, it's like getting into an EasyJet. You get in, you do as you're told, and it's up to them. And I felt safe in their hands. That's all I'd like to say, really.
Yeah. So, yeah, and of course, this is what they do. They have a vested interest in getting home to their families at the end of the day too. You know, they've got to always bear that in mind. And so you landed. As you came in, there'd been a lot of snow. A lot of snow had fallen, and there was a good, I was like, couple of feet, like 60 centimeters worth of fresh, dry, very light snow. Which, when you come in with a helicopter, of course, it's like you see in the films, and it kicks up the dust. It does the same thing with the snow. So something.
Can I just interject one thing? When you're crossing the Val d'Aban or coming round as we did, the aeroplane cannot go faster than its forward speed plus the speed of the helicopter blade. It can't go over the speed of sound. And I know where that is because I've done it so often. So I'm always happy when I see the pilot it starts to shake because the blade speed and the forward speed together are getting near the 730 miles an hour. And I like to see the collective coming off from the pilot, and because it gives me confidence. Now, when you do it in Italy, go around the Grand Saint Bernard and then over towards it, they just go flat out and it's all rapid. I don't like that. I like the Swiss way, which is to bring the collective down and stop the shaking. And he did that, which gave me great confidence. The pilot who lost his life, Jerome Louis, did that. So there was nothing wrong. I mean, and I'm always happy when I hear them come back a little bit, and it just, you know the feeling.
Yeah, I do.
And that's getting up to the speed of sound. Sorry to
No, that's fine. No, this is a conversation. So yeah, I understand as well. I used to go to work in a helicopter every day for a while. I'm always glad to land. Put it that way. And so helicopter comes in. It's then suddenly a whiteout, which is for a pilot one of the worst things. You can't see where you're supposed to land. That's probably the worst thing, actually. And for you guys, and for the passengers, when you can't see out the window, it's also becomes a bit frightening. But something happened. To this day, as far as I know, we don't know that the investigation is still going on as to exactly what did happen. But something clearly happened. One of the rotors touched the ground, which would have caused a catastrophic chain of events.
Wow.
And then you and the two younger fellas, the two younger gentlemen, you got effectively flung out of the helicopter.
Well, no, not really, because what happened was that when it first hit the ground on the top, we were all covered in diesel. Oof. And and I'm an engineer, so I'm an engineer, so you know about helicopters, but I don't know a lot about helicopters. But I know less than a meter away from the back of my head is an engine now that is not connected to the rotor, and it's doing 50,000 revs because you can hear it screaming away. And secondly, it's at 2,000 degrees centigrade, and I'm covered in diesel. My first reaction was, get out of here. Get out of here. You can't stay here. There's certainly no prospect in here. I know everyone says you shouldn't, but I just thought, 2,000 degrees, just what am I doing 50,000 instead of 30,000, 2,000 degrees centigrade, and I'm covered in diesel. That's not a place I want to be. So my first reaction was to get that. When the door exploded, was to get out.
Understandable.
And my belt was undone because I'd done that. When it crashed, it obviously went like that. So I was released. So my objective was to get out of here. And the engine had disconnected, presumably from its rod or whatever it is. It's from the gearbox. And it was just like on a motorway in a car, when if you kicked it into neutral with your foot flat on the ground, the engine would just go berserk. And that was where I was. And funnily enough, and I don't understand this, and many people I've spoken to say this, is that the whole thing is slowed down. It's almost like a slow motion going on. It might be only a few seconds, but it seems much, much longer. People who crash cars say, you bang your brakes on and you sort of float into the accident. It was very much like that.
Yeah.
Very much like that. And there wasn't time to think about things. There was an escape thought and let's get out of here. And then let me slow myself down by grabbing the boy on my right and ramming otherwise. And then we were helped by the helicopter shutting us out. I never saw them again. Not ever saw them again. I didn't see them until I got to hospital.
So, yes. So, okay. And then, so the top of this, I can see this particular mountain from my house, and the face it's a steep face. I think it's 60, 65, 55, 60 degrees in parts. It's
Well, I put it like this: the boys went down 1,000 meters, and in the avalanche, and it flattens out, not completely flattens out, but it goes down to less than 35, 40. And they fell 1,000 meters in 1,000 meters. So the average was 45.
Yeah.
So the top, as you say, was quite steep.
And for those who are listening, that is what we call very steep. Very, very steep. And you've got no chance. You're sliding down that. So you obviously don't know what's happened. This is from your perspective. You're just in a cloud of white, going very, very fast in an avalanche of all things. So just to make this day goes from bad to worse.
And the avalanche. Just to say that, sorry, butting in all the time.
But no, by all means.
But the helicopter that came in after us has got a rotor going round at a standard speed, and they've worked out that the avalanche you can see coming down that we were in was doing 160 kilometers an hour.
Oof.
So, and that's by the rotor, because the rotor standard 30,000. Well, I don't know how fast it's going, but the air investigation people have worked out that the avalanche that you see piling down, which we were in, was doing 160 kilometers an hour. Yeah, that wasn't right, was it?
No, that's and there's a lot of rocks and big things in the way.
To be fair, sorry to butt in again, but we were quite lucky that it was going so fast, because it pulled us into the couloir and away from the cliff. And because it was going so fast, it didn't roll. That roll motion. If it had rolled, we'd all be, down under the rocks, back up. There's no chance. But it was going so fast, which helped us in a way. So, looking try to things positively, it was a good thing it was going so fast, and it was a good thing that it pulled us away from the cliff and down into the couloir, down onto the side of the couloir. Not really a couloir; it's basically a track.
Yeah.
But it did, and it pulled me into the crevasse at about 500 meters, 580 meters. Someone saying, I don't know.
So you slid on your backside 580 meters down a very, very steep slope in an avalanche, and surviving that's pretty impressive. But then you fell 30 meters down into a crevasse, a big crack in the ice.
With all the snow around me, so I wasn't bouncing down on ice to ice to ice to ice. I went down into the crevasse with piles of snow around me. So,
but did you in the moment? So if you're 500 meters when you're going that fast, in the avalanche, that's only really it's a couple of seconds, really, isn't it? It can't be very long. And you're going down something very steep anyway, and then you get to the point where did you feel like you were full, as in, this is now a new sensation, even though I can't see anything. I'm now falling as opposed to sliding.
Yeah,
you see what I mean?
I don't know. I knew I was going into a crevasse, and for some reason, I've no idea why, because I could have thought that I was going into the snow. and being buried. But I think, but it was only 30 meters down, so that would have been, it wasn't that far. It's only 3 diving boards height, but it's not that much. Anyway, sorry, but I mean, I'm not belittling it, but it was it started going, I think it started going dark and quiet, and I thought that was it. I think, well,
Yeah.
you're finished. But anyway, bang onto the snow bridge, and I've often thought, when did that big lump of snow, ice, come down and make my little snow bridge? And it's quite sort of philosophical question. How did that happen? And it landed precisely in the right place. And when I hit it, I didn't just go straight through it. And it's all, I don't know how it happened, but all that happened was I landed on a bridge with my one foot through it and the other dangling over, with certain death if she went anywhere near there. And I was just sort of piling snow under my backside for the first 10 minutes.
What, trying to make yourself comfortable?
No, just because I knew that to go down there.
Oh, yeah.
Was absolute certain.
So you reckon at least 200 meters deep that crevasse was?
I don't know, but yeah. I mean, I don't know. It was just going down, and the snow. You'd see the snow coming down, and it sort of came down really slowly, caught the light from the hole in the top, and it gave me a perspective, because it was like going miles down and seemed to be going very slowly. Everything was quite slow in there, which was a new and nicer sensation than the helicopter or the avalanche. I was quite pleased that everything had slowed down and I had time to think.
Have you seen the movie or read the book Touching the Void?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. That is a fantastic film, and I'm sure people should watch it. It's a similar sort of thing, climbing accident, we'll call it, and he slid down and also fell into a crevasse, but managed to crawl his way out, but much more. It's a hell of a story. It's a great story, and that one. But what I was going to say is, so you landed on the snow bridge, and do you reckon how if you can look to your left down the crevasse and to your right down the crevasse,
it's about half a bit more, 3/4 of a meter wide, no, a bit less, half a meter wide. Sorry, half a meter wide that way, and I'm sat on it with my foot through the bridge at the end, and sort of jammed with ice right round my head, not about that much round my head, about that wide, and I'm just jammed. And then I then thought, right, okay, after my talking to myself, and I have to say, Jesus Christ didn't get a particularly good press from me. Neither Edward Courage nor Jesus Christ got a particularly good press. Anyway, once that had finished, I thought, right, well, there's no way out of here without thinking. You're not gonna, if you panic, you're finished. Everything led to you're finished. So in my jacket, I had my telephone, and I very carefully got it out with my broken arm, and then I jammed the phone into my hand, and then held on to it as much as I could. Funnily enough, you don't have lots of pain. I don't know how it happens, but you don't at that stage. And then I lifted my arm up like that, and where you can see all those scars now, that's where because my arm just went off, because it was broken in 3 places.
So it just folded over. It wasn't working.
Just went, well, it didn't go all the way down, but it just went, and I thought, oh God, that doesn't look too good. So then I got my jacket, and with the Velcro tied my arm up, and then and then I'm an electronics engineer, so I know that I've got to get height for this satellite application to work, and Echo SOS to work. And so I sort of raised my arm up as high as I could, and it went in.
So yeah, Echo SOS, shout out Echo SOS, literally saved your bacon.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
does that connect to the, because on my phone you've got the emergency call button that
Yeah.
I don't know what it does. It connects to a satellite, or it's just there's
Well,
a secret network.
it sends your satellite coordinates
Yeah,
to the emergency services, and then
yeah,
they then, through a bit of argy bargy, connect you up, because my transceiver wouldn't work. I mean,
no,
there's 50 meters, no, well, not 50 meters, but 20 meters of solid ice in front of me. So the transceiver's completely useless unless the bloke is halfway down. So the only thing you can do is connect to a satellite. So I connected, gave my coordinates to the emergency services through Echo SOS. And every time I saw a helicopter going over the top at, 30 meters above, you can still see them go over. I went boom, boom, like that. And eventually they connected me up somehow. I don't know how they did it. And I was able to talk to
it's,
them.
oh, they called you,
No, well, there was a connection on Echo SOS.
right? Because I wouldn't have thought you'd get mobile reception that far down
No,
in
no,
a.
no, I think it's something to do with satellite connection and
Okay, so there is some sort of,
mucking around going on.
yeah, there's some sort of secret network that we're not allowed to know about.
I think it's using the mobile network, but it's using
Yeah,
probably the Morvazan transmitter rather than just a cell transmitters
yeah.
or something.
I
Anyway,
didn't.
eventually I got they got me, um, and they were unbelievably helpful. And the feeling, and I was down there 5 hours, and the when you get close to death, there's actually rather a nice feeling of peace and quiet after all the trauma, and it's very reflective, and I think it's a mixture of exposure and bad injuries, sort of gets you into this. But you mustn't go there. You mustn't go there. And this delightful girl on just said, bite your hand. What's your wife's birthday? Tell me the names of each of your children. Da, 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 da. Because you have this lovely feeling that, well, I'll just have a bit of a doze,
Mm.
and that's death. You're dead. So she was so helpful. And they have actually got a recording of it. The police have advised I don't listen to it. But anyway, I haven't made my mind up, but it's in the evidence for the whole thing. And it's important not to go to sleep. So eventually, after 5 hours down there, I was at 27 degrees when they got me out. So you're not really supposed to live under 30, but well, you can anyway. I was at 27 because the trouble was I've got my rucksack, but that's in the pannier bag of the helicopter, and it's got all the silver bags and all that stuff and loads of clothes and stuff. But that was so I didn't have anything than what was on I was in. So I pulled my jacket up like this because it's the back of your head where the danger is. Where all the kit to run your heart and respiration and all that. So I just crouched like this and tried to stop the snow coming down into my back. And then eventually down they came, and they pitoned right by my face into the ice, and lashed me off to my helicopter harness. And then somehow, they cut the bridge away, and it all just went. And it just went. I'm sorry to do that again, but it just went. It's a memory that
Cool noise.
the noise of this ice going miles down, and the sight of it going away. And then I'm hanging on this piton carabiner. And then they started pulling me out with a helicopter. And then the first bit, they pulled me out, and then the helicopter. And I shouted at them, you're going to pull my arms off. You're just going to pull my arm. And the bloke just from Air Zone just said, "We've got to get you out of here. You're dying."
Oh, thanks for those words.
Huh?
Thank you for those kind words.
Those kind words was my reaction.
Holy shit!
And then as I came out of the on the helicopter rope, and I think it was a mixture between the helicopter rope and the safety people at the top guiding me out, I was suddenly upside down, and you could see for miles. And then I remember a great friend of mine in Verbier, he was in the army, being in Afghanistan or something. He said, if you're in a really bad situation, just say to yourself, the next 10 seconds got to be better than the last. And if you get to 5 seconds, then, things aren't great. And when I was upside down underneath the helicopter with the winchman sort of trying to stop me ramming into the wall and stop blades of the helicopter going into the ice. Oh, dude.
My God.
It was pretty scary. And but I learned later that they got rubber salmons on the end of the helicopter blades. I might be wrong. So that they can actually touch the wall, but I didn't know that at the time. And the blade looks so close. It was horrible. Anyway, then they lowered me down onto a ledge. And then the doctors, the marvelous doctors, started warming me up and trying to get me into a basket thing. And then down to cabin brûlée in the basket with a doctor beside me or someone beside me. Into a helicopter, then off to intensive care at Sion. And that's pretty much what that day.
It's quite a morning.
Yeah, it was quite a morning. Well, it ended at 3 in the afternoon, started at 9.
Oh, yeah, because you were in there for 5 hours. So we're going to go back to the 5 hours part. You sent me a video of you in the crevasse.
Yeah.
And it is insane what it is. And you pointed the camera down and you can see right all the way down. And it's just a black, to the abyss.
Yeah.
You are literally hanging above the abyss in every sense, right? And it's done there for 5 hours. You're hypothermic. From what I've heard from people who've had hypothermia is a similar sort of thing as you said, is you actually feel quite fine. I feel quite warm.
Yeah.
I'm not cold anymore. It's quite peaceful, and I'm just gonna have a little nap. And as you said, it's not that you gotta. That's what you have to do. We get trained in the military. You get trained heavily. Don't let anyone fall asleep in that situation because, they might not come back.
Well, it won't come back because sorry butting in, but
no, go ahead.
If your heart stops at 27 degrees, there's no way they can start it because the blood's all too. I mean, I'm not a doctor. What on earth am I talking about? I have no idea what I'm talking about. But the blood is so thick because it's cold that there's no chance of getting you back. So you must not sort of go to sleep and lower anything because you're only on. Anyway, you'll have to excuse my lack of medical knowledge, but it's not great. 27 degrees is not great. But this lovely lady on the phone just kept asking me questions and asking me more questions. And then I started biting my arm. All the things you do. My arm was already smashed up, so biting didn't make an awful lot of difference, I have to say. But then, but I have to say, after 5 hours, the pain had really started to come in. And it's rib pain because you have to breathe. And 9 ribs broken in 12 places wasn't great.
But you didn't collapse a lung or anything?
Yeah, I had some back here, a row of screw holes here, and that was all falling down into my lungs.
Oh, my God.
and there was an awful lot of blood around, right?
So
Well, they cut me out of all my clothes, but I really don't want to see them ever again.
a bloodbath.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible. But then the next question is, there's so much chaos, and I don't want to be critical of anyone in that situation. But they were panicking about me, and my wife and the Goths, their son was killed. My wife was at the Goths for 5 hours waiting for the police knock on the door because it was quite clear that one of us, either me or their son, had lost his life. And, they had a horrible time. I know there's no way of making these things better and easier, but it's easy for me to be down in the crevasse. At least I'm active, and at least I know, I'm still alive, and I know I'm still alive. But for them, stuck in a flat in Verbier, waiting for the knock on the door, was pretty horrible. And
No.
also the boy's father, they were found quite soon, but they were badly injured when they came down, all the way down in the crevasse. When they did ring their father, and their father was just absolutely not panicking, but really, really concerned that how badly were his sons injured and who's going to go and get them. But there's a lot of chaos. But in the end, the Swiss did a great job for us. 9 helicopters looking for it.
Because those two, how old were they? They were.
Well, one was 18. He's just done his A levels, so he was under 18, and the other boy was 23.
And they slid all the way down the face of that mountain, 1,000 meters.
Yeah,
1,000 meters.
1,000 meters, but they also dropped 1,000.
Yeah, 1,000 meters horizontal and 1,000 meters vertical. So with an average of 45 degrees, that is it. And they were banged up, but I think you got the worst of it, did you?
Well, my wife says because I'm so much older than them, I'm bundling up, and my bones are all so brittle, and because I'm such an old codger, that I probably wouldn't have made it. It was only because of their soft, supple young bones that they survived. Yeah. So it may be that the crevasse was a good thing, that it actually saved my life. I will never know that. And I'd already used up a few lives going down in the avalanche, and there's just no sound like an avalanche. I've heard many avalanches in the sort of Val Derby on the other side, and it is a terrifying thing. What's so amazing is that you've got these little tiny bits of snow that come down that are so benign, and yet all together they can be so powerful. It's a bit like the sea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nature is just so overwhelming.
So you're in that much pain and that much shock. You're clearly you find yourself in an altered state of mind. You have to be. Now you said that you wiped down the ice, made a mirror, and had a little conversation with Edward J. Courage.
That's right.
You and yourself. I don't know if there's any finger pointing or swearing at yourself, but
no. It was basically, there's no chance here if you're going to panic. No one's going to find you down here. There's no chance of surviving this, and you've probably got a few hours, and it's all going to be over. In those hours, you've got to either get out of here or find a way out of here. And I started trying to climb, but there's just no chance because my leg was jammed through the bridge, and I didn't want the whole lot to go anyway. So, there's some big choices there.
And you said you got quite philosophical. So in that time, this is what I find. This is what I like about the human condition and human spirit, and these stories I like so much because you get an idea of somebody who's at the brink and what it's like. Because I think everyone would certainly people who like to do I wouldn't say necessarily like to be in that situation, but they do adrenaline sports or things that are slightly dangerous. And you push it, but not too much. But you pushed it to the very, very, very limit. And so when you're in that situation, you're looking at yourself, what are the thoughts that are coming to your mind? What are your philosophical questions?
Well, the philosophical questions are, one wants to survive. I mean, where there's life, there's hope, and you want to survive. But your your options aren't that great. You're 100 feet, 30 meters down in a crevasse, badly smashed up. You'd no idea where the crevasse was. In fact, at that time, I thought I'd gone down the north side of the Petit Combat. So I was really surprised when the SOS went in, because I thought I was sort of facing the south of France, in effect, on the other side, and there was no, So I thought, well, I've either got to get out of here, or I'm done for, and I've got to make some decisions. And I thought I was on the south side. Do you know the Mexico? You come off the top, and you've got that very steep bit where you traverse across. And I thought I'd gone straight down there, and there is a crevasse at the bottom, but it's not very far. It's only about 50 meters down. I thought I'd gone into that, but then I suddenly thought, well, that's not quite right, because there was this, I shouldn't swear, but this bloody big avalanche, and that wouldn't avalanche, would it? And then I thought, there's no point in knowing where you are, because so what? So that's when I started thinking, well, radio is the only way out of here, satellite, or try to pull my transceiver and get that up into as high as I could, or, you haven't got options aren't great. But one certain option is down there, no chance. No chance at all. No.
So what are you, like, are you dark thoughts? Did you come to a feeling of acceptance?
Well, yes, you do. I did accept where I was, and then have to work out what is the best thing to do, even if the options are very, very small, and work out, try and find a way out of here. Sorry to be boring, but you've got to find a solution to this thing. That's my sort of engineering side, I suppose, but you've got to find a solution to this thing. I mean, I've been upside down in cars with not many years ago, but I have been upside down in cars. It was a similar sort of feeling. This isn't great. I'm, I mean, I don't, I just think you've just got to keep calm, slow things down, and try and find some way out of it. I did try starting to climb, but it was just hopeless, just blue ice,
Yeah, and you haven't got any crampons, and you couldn't have got them on with your shattered arm and hand.
Yeah, my legs through the crevasse. And, my breathing's not great because something's going on down here. I don't really want to know about, but respiration is pretty important.
Yeah.
Anyway,
man,
so
that's
that was a madness. And then when I got to hospital, I was on the. Can I talk about that bit?
Aye, go ahead.
Well, when I got to hospital, they were delightful and helped me, and I was in intensive care. But I was on these OxyContin, Oxy things, these very high. I think there's
synthetic opioids.
That's the word. Sorry, thank you. Synthetic opioids.
Yeah.
And I'm a redheaded, not very, quite sensitive person to drugs, and they just blew my brains out. I mean, just. So in the end, I'm sat there in bed and I'm thinking, well, I could hear someone talking over there. And there's this next door in the next unit is a bloke who's snoring. It was very irritating. And I don't know why I was so irritated, but it's probably something to do with these drugs. I subsequently found that he couldn't move because they'd taken his legs off. Anyway, that's another stuff. Anyway, so in the end, I disconnect myself from all this stuff and go out with a sort of trolley thing with bags on it to go and talk to these nurses. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, how I walked, God only knows. There's nothing wrong actually down below. But anyway, I got out and I had an epidural in my back, which was taking the pain out of my chest. And they saw me and they grabbed me, sat me in this seat, and then the epidural then went up. Well, they put it in as high as they could in order to kill off all the pain up here. So it just stopped my heart. Complete everything. And they went on the floor. And then I sort of woke up in another bloody operating, sorry, I shouldn't swear, but another operating theatre with concerned people all looking at me. And they brought me. So that was a really weird thing. And on my notes, it just says in French, respiration ceased.
Yeah, that is unreal. So you died in the hospital. Your heart stopped in the hospital after, and that's because you got up and walked around when you weren't supposed to.
Sort of not walking. I was sort of staggering because these drugs are so strong. I can't tell you. They take away all the pain, but you're in the sort of weird place of, oxy something, and then Oromorph. They gave me gallons of Oromorph, and I had this sort of thing to press on my side that shot me off into the. Yeah. Suddenly, I was playing lead guitar for the Who.
Perfect. Well, it's heroin. I mean, you're getting it's synthetic heroin, but that's what those rock and roll guys used to be into. Some of them still are, I suppose.
I guess
but
they are.
I've never experienced it. I've never had a. I've somewhat one of my friends. In fact, I'm not going to name him because I got in trouble from an anesthetist. The ones the doctors that give you the anesthetics and stuff.
The epidural, he was in.
Yeah, exactly. So they, and he was dropping him into a drink because he broke his ankle and he was dropping morphine into my drink.
Wow.
Yeah, which is apparently very dangerous. But I didn't feel anything, so
yeah. You go into this sort of hallucinatory world,
yeah,
where you could do anything. You could just sort of. I think I'll just walk across the ceiling, or I'll tell you what. There's some nurses out there. I'll go and have a chat with them. Which was, I mean, can you imagine anything more stupid than that? And I had all these buzzers and belts and everything all over me, and I kind of just sort of took them off. And then the machine starts going me. And I sort of then grabbed the pole, which has got the epidural going into my back, I think, and saline liquid and all sorts. I don't know what. Anyway, and I sort of walked over like this to the door. Quite extraordinary.
It is.
It is. It is just the human condition, I think. Anyway, but the Swiss are very, very sensible about all that stuff. They won't let you out of a Swiss hospital on those drugs. You have to be on the other ones, much, much milder ones.
Mm. So since this, I mean, the unimaginable day, not in your wildest dreams could you imagine that would happen to you. And the fact that I'm talking to you about it now, and you're alive and you're laughing and stuff. Has it changed you? I mean, some people, when they have a near-death experience, they come back and they've got a completely different perspective on life.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I feel, I don't feel that I should live life to the full every day, but I do, because I've always sort of thought that, and it's a bit of a cliche anyway, but I do feel that, I have a duty to myself, probably, to not to waste the opportunities that I've been given back. And I feel a sort of a religious duty as well as a physical duty to actually kind of do my best, and I've been, a lot of people go into anger, and I think that's the most useless thing to do, because you have to feed the anger all the time with more anger, and anger turns to bitterness, to hate, and all that stuff. It's probably quite a good thing at the beginning of a bereavement or a trauma, but long term, it's absolutely hopeless. So, the first thing is that no one in that whole scenario left that day, got out of bed and said, right, I'm going to crash a helicopter, or I'm going to do. They all got up thinking this was an ordinary day and let's make the most of today. So I'm sort of trying to do that. They say that a lot of trauma it needs to be processed in your mind, and actually things do come back to me about the accident and about things, and they become clearer. So I've been to a lot of inquiries. They come to. I've told them I'm not going to Bern anymore or to Martigny. They have to come to Verbier. So they all come to Verbier, the inquiry people. That's the crash inquiry, Swiss crash inquiry, and the police. Police have been marvellous, actually. And they come to Verbier, and they don't like being in the middle of Verbier, so they go to a village hall like Volage or something like that. And they always bring a very nice psychiatrist who sort of calms me down, and then they ask me questions, because I'm the only one alive who's ever really been in helicopters to any great extent. The two boys who survived, they've only been in a couple of helicopters, but I mean, I've been doing heli skiing for yonks, Anyway, so the question is, how can I help? It's probably my biggest help. And I try and keep in touch with the people that lost, the families of the people who lost their lives very much, and keep away the anger and try and build back my life. I had 21 hours of surgery to get myself back, 3 surgeons to 7.5 hours each. And then I had a very, very, very advanced, on my notes it says he cannot take any more trauma. You love that. So they got a special anaesthetist team out from Lausanne, and they went in all my nerves all round here, up tiny little needles, almost like an acupuncture needle, and shoved in some Dettol or whatever, I don't know, some chemical, which shut everything off. So when you have the anaesthetic, it shuts the front of the brain off, but then all that trauma goes back up into the back. Well, they said Ed Courage can't take any more trauma, so they shut everything off, everything. And so when I woke up in the morning, I just sort of felt great, And the anaesthetic in all these nerves lasted about two days, so I was very comfortable for a few days.
And then I guess once after that, it's a long process. I know, but when did you come? When did you come off the? I was going to say heroin. When did you come off the synthetic opioids?
Well, as I said right at
Oxy.
the beginning of the interview, Adam George was one of my greatest friends. I've been heli skiing and every week in our club in Verbier, every week in the winter, I went almost every week, not every week, but most weeks with Adam. And he was our guide, and I considered him one of my greatest friends. So I insisted on going to his funeral, which was only 5 or 6 days afterwards. So I sort of started myself, just seeing the Swiss really like, and I got in a wheelchair and went to the funeral.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh yeah, well I was that wreck in the. I don't know if you saw me. I was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And
God.
yeah. Anyway, so I went to that, and then from then onwards, I then went back for a huge amount of surgery in Martigny, and they did it. They did a lovely job for me. And in fact, they wrote to me the other day saying they'd like to use my case for teaching about surgery, which I'm rather pleased about. They
Well, they
are
do.
very good. There's people.
Yeah, well, they do say that Swiss surgeons are very good at rebuilding knees because of all the biking and skiing accidents and what have you. Just like apparently Belfast Royal Infirmary was very good at rebuilding knees. Different reasons.
Yeah. Well, I think it meets the Swiss kind of Patek Philippe approach to life. Very detailed. Don't get things wrong. Make sure that it all goes back together, and and they did do a great job. And I mean, I can now do that. That's all new. All smashed to pieces.
Mm.
In fact, I did my physio this morning.
But you can walk.
Yeah.
What do you reckon you're back at? What, 80%, 70%?
Yeah, I mean, they did something to my back. I think it's something to do with my collapsed lung on the mountainside, and they did something in my back, which still gives me a bit of grief, and I probably have to have that fixed. But apart from that, I'm just a bit, not quite there yet, but not bad, I mean,
Yeah.
and
You
I'm
look
going
good.
skiing. Everyone says you're mad, but I am going skiing. I won't. I just go, ordinary off-piste skiing, nothing too crazy. Certainly, I'm not going to go in helicopters. Funnily enough, the crash investigators want me to go in a helicopter back on the route. What do you think of that?
I'd do it.
You'd do it.
Yeah, when you've looked into the abyss already, I'd go and get the full tour. Show me where I fell in. I want to see where I fell. You may as well just know everything about it because then you don't have any questions.
It's
I don't
amazing
know.
because the chap who's in charge of the investigation, he's a really nice guy. He's from Bern, from the crash investigators in Bern. He's such a nice guy, and he's a helicopter pilot, and he wants me to go on it to see if we can nudge my memory.
Yeah.
Big question is when the helicopter was bouncing like this, it goes over 8 degrees. Did the pilot pull the collective, the thing that changes the rotation of the blades and pulls the engine up? Did he kill that off? And I can't be sure.
I mean,
it's a big question, and I'm sure he did because that's what all pilots do. But they beat me up in the inquiry after time and try and make me remember. And what I do actually might help other people because there was a woman who said that the starboard engine of her EasyJet was on fire. She survived. And actually, it wasn't the starboard engine, it was the port engine that caught fire. So this is a great friend of mine who's in this game, in the aviation game. So I always put a percentage, and I'm 80% sure I saw the post. 80%.
Yeah.
And I've drawn a drawing because that's crucial. Did he land in the right place? Well, I'm 80% sure I saw that post.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't want to preempt the inquiry, but I always put a percentage how sure I am. How sure was I that it was 30 meters down in the crevasse, or was it 50 meters? Well, I'm probably only 25% sure it was 30.
Yeah, I've been in 2 accident investigations from my military days.
Oh, right.
Neither of them were my fault, but I was very much because I was an eyewitness. One, I was right next to the person when it happened, and one I saw it from a short distance. But they make you feel like a criminal. They make you feel like you. I said, whoa, hang on. But it's not very nice. It's not a very pleasant experience. I didn't enjoy it.
No, they certainly are quite, and they go into a huge amount of detail. The last one I did was the Brits are involved because one of the people that died had a British passport.
Yeah.
So the British coroner, I assume, has said, right, you've got to be, and the British investigator, jolly nice guy. He helps me a lot because, they are going for you, as you say. They've got to find out what happened. So not in order to tear someone up who's already dead, or to do something, or to beat up, your Airbus who made the helicopter. They just got to find out what it is and try and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Again,
That's the
brutal. As you say, it's quite a brutal process.
Yeah. And I think from what I know, because I've a lot of friends of mine are pilots,
right?
Still are pilots, and they say that there's like it's almost like as something happens, it's almost like an amnesty. So when you talk about it, there's no recrimination. I know I'm probably getting this completely wrong, but there's a degree of honor. You have to say, right, I did this. I'm an idiot. I did it wrong. And that gets promulgated amongst all pilots. So don't do this. So I understand what it's about, and it's trying to make things as safe as possible. And it's been done like this for years. So anyway, but Ed, I'd just like to say thank you very much.
Well, I want to just say one last thing that I did have.
There's more.
We did have quite a lot of difficulty with the press, the British press.
Oh yeah.
And the Swiss, bless their hearts, they just don't have a press like the Brits. And so someone rang up the British embassy in Bern and talked to the British consulate, and who told us how to deal with the press. And at one point, they were hiding in the laundry or somewhere in the intensive care, and then came out and interviewed me when I was in a very high state of these drugs, and in fact they gave me a reasonable hearing, and I've heard the interview, but it did say that I saved these boys. Well, that is, and that's what went all over the world. And when I say did I save the boys, I really want on the record to say that I wanted to get out the helicopter, and I obviously wanted them out of the way, especially the one on the left, and I wanted to slow myself down. So the real truth, after all of the remembering everything, was that I did grab and pull him, but it was to slow me down, and I did boot the other one, break my arm, but it wasn't, and everyone goes on about it, but I didn't sort of think, oh, I must save this boy and this other boy from certain death. I mean, there was no opportunity to do anything like that. It was bang, 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 crash, 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 diesel everywhere, awful, awful, and me trying to stop myself flying out at 600 miles an hour, and they came out with me. So I just make that absolutely clear.
No, that's a valid point. If you've been in a car crash or anything like that, any sort of accident, it's seconds, and you don't know what it's basically your self-preservation.
Yeah.
If you've got the time, and oftentimes you don't. It's just anyway. No, it's difficult. It would be difficult to judge you for that one. It's and no one, and that's one thing you realize from these inquiries is they start asking these questions, in which something you were certain of turns out it's not true. Yeah. So it's from my perspective, what I saw, that's what I saw, but somebody else said they saw something different. Now, who's right? Who's wrong?
Yeah.
That's
the Daily Mail guys have contacted me and apologized for doing the interview. I've said, well, that's your job. I mean, there's nothing. And the British consul did tell us the 5 things to do, and one of them was, you're not going to be able to stop this, and if you don't deal with them, they will write what they want, and you've no idea what they're going to write. You may as well talk about yourself only. Don't ever talk about anyone else. And give one interview and just say that's it. Anyway,
and then bugger off.
Well,
don't bother me again.
Yeah, they have. I mean, to be fair, they have got a job to do. I'm going to go and see Lord Rothermere, who's in charge of the Daily Mail, and have a chat with him. I'm not going to do it destructively, but just you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. At least you've got the recourse to go and do that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Ed.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to get to see you this weekend. I was kind of hoping don't think we're going to have time. It's a birthday weekend thing, and there's a bunch of stuff planned. But how about this? Let's go skiing when you get back. I'll take you out. We'll go for a ski.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Ed. Well,
Anyway,
I'll see you soon when you come back. I think you're coming back in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
And but thank you so much for coming and talking about it, because I when we spoke before, I said this is a movie.
I'd just like to quietly end the interview in silence, remembering those that lost their lives. Do you mind me doing?
Not at all.
So, bye then.